Hello. In loop or iterative control structure, we have observed whenever we are trying to execute few statements, one or more statements multiple times, then you use loop. And the same thing can be implemented by help of recursion. So, what is recursion is when a function is calling itself. Some statements are written within a function and I am calling the same function again and again, and this call can be in between two different functions also. So, recursion is the function, the process of calling when a function is calling itself, and this calling can be direct or indirect. So, indirect means if I have a function, this function is calling itself again and again, it is calling, again and again it is calling. So, this is called recursion, or it can be there are two different functions, this function is calling this one, this function is again calling this one, and this way this is a recursive call or recursive function. So, this is the recursion is also whenever we are trying to go for recursion, this call is nothing but a function is calling a copy of itself. Say for example, so we will go for the other discussion later. So, if this is a function, say this is the syntax, okay, I will come to this syntax later. Let us have a look with an example. Say for example, I am having a function like fun is a function. Here I have declared a variable, value of a variable int n is a variable and this is void. Say for example, this is void, okay, this is void. Okay. Now, what I am writing, if the value of n is greater than 1, I am just printing printf a, and at the same time I am calling function of n minus 1. Just have a look in this function. Now, I am assigning the value of 5 as 5, n as 5. So, n is initialized as 5, n is 5 now, n is greater than 1, yes. So, what it will do? It will print a will be printed. Then after printing this function, this call will be there. So, this function will again call with n minus 1 value, that means this function will be again called with n minus 1, that value is now 4. So, n is 4 now, in this case n is 4 now, okay. Then again n is greater than 1, yes, it is 4, again it will print a, then n minus 1, with n minus 1 this value function will be called. The same copy of the same function is calling. Now, how this call is performed? First this is a stack is used for different function calls. So, this is the first call with, this is the function call with the value 5. So, there are two different tasks. One task is printing of a, another task is printing function calling of n minus 1. So, the task, if I am calling this one, there are two different tasks, one is printing of a and another one is calling of function 4. So, if n is greater than 1, then first a is printed and calling of 4 value. So, same function will be called with 4 value. So, when same function 4 is called with 4, then there are two different tasks. One task is printing a is printed and call the function f with 3 value, okay. So, f of 3 will call here. So, f of 3, this is f of 3, this function is called when there are two different tasks, one is printing of a again and function call of 2 values, okay. So, again this 2 will be called, function of f of 2 is called, and when this is called there are two tasks, printing of 2 and function call of 1, okay. Now, when I am calling this function 1, then what will happen? Look here, n must be greater than 1, but here this n is not greater than 1, is this value is, this n is not greater than 1, okay. So, what will happen? This task f of 1 is done, because this particular statement will not be executed there, it will not enter because condition is not satisfied. So, it will return back. When is returning back? when is repeated every step it is printing here 1 A is printed here, 1 A is printed, A is printed here, A is printed here, A is printed here, again here also printing of A is there. So, there will be printed. So, 4 times A will be printed, and this way it will return back, this is done, this is done, this is come back, this is done, come back, this is done, and come back. So, this way the whole output will be displayed, and for every recursive call, every function copy of the function when it is calling, we are having a new value in the stack. So, stack is incrementing, stack is inside a stack, this particular function is done. Now, if I have the same example like this, void, this is fun int n, and if I have if n is greater than 1, then we have 2 different tasks. One is fun of n minus 1, I am calling the same function with n minus 1 value, and printf, I am what value I am printing, I am assuming I am printing what value, the value of n, I am not going with the syntax. Okay, the syntax is percentile d comma whatever n. Okay, if you say this, I can write this also, this is let me write it. Okay, let me write it. So, this is %d comma n, then what will be the output in this case? Just pause the video and try to think about the code. So, when this function is called, then this function is called, these are the different calls. So, when function n is, this is called with n is 5. So, here n is 5 and this function call is function of 5. When function of 5 is called, there are 2 different tasks, task 1, this is task 2, there are 2 tasks need to be performed if the value of n is greater than 1. So, in value of n is greater than 1, there are 2 different tasks, one is calling of the function 4. So, function 4 will be called, but before call there is one thing left which will be done later. So, that is printing of what value, n value, that is printing of 5. So, here when function 4 is called, n is greater than 1, then there are 2 different tasks. So, what are they? Here n is 4. So, there are 2 different tasks, call of function of 3 n minus 1 and printing of 4. So, function f of 3 will be called f of 3, this is f of 3 more block, and when f of 3 is called, there are 2 different tasks, calling of f of 2 and printing of 3 value. Okay, so then f of 2 is called, when f of 2 is called, this is f of 2, there are 2 different tasks, one is f of 1, because f equal calling f1 of f of m minus n minus 1, this f stand for f, okay, this is f, and printing of what? Printing of 2, here n is 2, here n is 3. Now, when it is called, then this is the block of f of 1, this is the block of f of 1. Now, what will happen? F of 1 is called, when f of 1 is called, then n is must be greater than 1, then only these 2 statements will be executed. So, this will this task is done, will return back here, this is done. So, when this will be done, that means what is left? This is done, the 2 will be printed, 2 is printed here. When this whole is done, then I will come back here, what is left? Printing of 3 is printed, this is done. Then return back here, what is left? Printing of 4, this is done. When I will come back again, what is left? Printing of 5. So, 5 will be printed and this is done. So, all the recursive calls are done, and this way the output will show 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thank you. If you have any query, please write in the comment section.